Welcome everyone to this next International Manifesto Group webinar entitled The End of US Hegemonism in West Asia. My name is Radhika Desai and I convene the International Manifesto Group. In the wake of Palestinians observing the 75th Nakba Day, the day when Palestinians were pushed out of their homelands, this Zoom panel explores the rapidly changing contours of domestic and international politics in West Asia, a region which we also know as the Middle East. And this is also happening in the wake of the restoration of relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia in a deal brokered by China. So all elements of this scenario indicate a very big change that is coming. And in our panel, our speakers will help us to collectively figure out how transformative this agreement and many of the other changes that it symbolizes has been for the Middle East or West Asia. Ever since the First World War made the strategic importance of oil clear, the Middle East has been one of the principal theaters of imperialist intervention by the West, led by the UK and France, and of course soon joined by the United States. That imperialist intervention intensified massively in the 1980s with the proclamation of the so-called Carter Doctrine. Just months before proclaiming the Carter Doctrine, in which President Carter essentially said that the United States was going to feel free to use force to defend its national interests thousands of miles away in the Middle East, the president had delivered a rather sagacious speech calling on the US to focus on resolving its own ills, the inflation, stagnation, the crisis of political legitimacy with the Nixon and Watergate scandal, the defeat in Vietnam, and of course the all-important energy crisis. And he urged the country to do so with its own resources and will, rather than relying on the rest of the world to solve its problems for them. He said inter alia that we are taught that our armies were always invincible and our causes were always just, only to suffer the agony of Vietnam. We respected the presidency as a place of honor until the shock of Watergate. We remember when the phrase "sound as a dollar" was an expression of absolute dependability until 10 years of inflation began to shrink our dollar and our savings. We believe that the nation's resources were limitless until 1973, when we had to face our growing dependence on foreign oil. These are Carter's words. And of course, today, if you had a leader who was willing to admit such things, the United States would be in a much better position, as would the world. However, that was not to be. It's very clear that imperialist lobbies got the better of him in short order, and just 6 months later, he announced the Carter Doctrine, in which the US has arrogated to itself the right to use force in the Middle East to protect its so-called national interest. Hence, West Asia or the Middle East has been at the center of the path of denial, vain aggression, and increasing desperation on which the United States set itself. And we are now seeing the inevitable unraveling of this strategy that the United States had and could have. Where until recently it was Israel that appeared to be winning friends across the region, as several Middle Eastern countries assigned the so-called Abraham Accords. Today, we see a very different reality with the Chinese brokered agreement between Iran and Saudi Arabia to restore their relations, and that indicates a major reorientation of the Middle East. But of course, situation is always more complex, and the broad parameters that we can name within which today this reorientation of the region is taking place can be identified as the consisting of several factors. For example, the economic decline of the United States, thanks to its financialization, rising inequality, social division, political breakdown, racial divisions, etc. And divisions that are also manifest as Congress is about to start debating this dubious new debt ceiling agreement that President Biden and Kevin McCarthy have come up with. Secondly, there is increasing clarity around the world that the United States has, what it has to offer is war and self-destruction. Of those with the misfortune and lunacy to become US allies. Thirdly, there is the rise of China and with the party state's commitment to the betterment of its people. Fourthly, also the spreading recognition that what China has to offer its partners around the world is development and empowerment, the complete opposite of what we see the US offering. There is also the ongoing struggle of the peoples of the region for development, dignity, and above all for peace. There is Israel's increasing repression of Palestine, even as, according to Ilan Pappé, two parts of the state, a conservative, hyper-religious wing willing to not just raise the specter of war, but to wage war, particularly against Iran, in order to keep its precarious control over the Israeli state apparatus, and an allegedly liberal wing concerned about losing control over the same state apparatus and also concerned about its international image. But the fact of the matter is both of these parties are in common agreement about the need to repress the Palestinian aspirations for independence. And finally, there are residual liberal and neoliberal forces across the region, including in countries like Iran, that are supported by the United States and encouraged to mount so-called color revolutions for regime change. So these are just some of the factors that I can think of. I'm sure that I've left many important ones out, but that's why we've got this esteemed panel to put before you their views.
I'm Michael Hudson. I'm appearing here for the International Manifesto group. If you like this video and ones like it, please subscribe. For more information, go to the address on the screen.